Canucks' goaltending options with Demko being injured. We're going to go over 6 different options that the Canucks currently have. But before we dive into that, as I always do, I want to quickly give a shout out to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art. Make this amazing artwork you see behind my shoulder here, and you guys can check them out yourselves at GassyJackArt.com. I have a link to his website in the description down below. All right, let me talk to you. The goaltending options for the Canucks with Demko injured for 2 to 3 weeks, at least a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks. I have 6 options, as I mentioned, that the Canucks could potentially go with. 5 of these options are from an article on Canucks Army written by Jeff Patterson. I threw in, it's technically an article about 5 options, but I decided to throw in a 6th option of my own, as this 6th option is something that I thought of. And so let's go ahead and not waste any more time and take a look at them. Let's take a look at the first option here real quick. So here's the first one, and it's pretty much the obvious one, and that's run with Lankinen. Lankinen was signed last September amidst injury uncertainty with Demko, so this is nothing new. Already with the maintenance day drama of the past week, Lankinen has been forced into back-to-back starts and has now appeared in 4 of the team's last 5 games. He's also given up 5 goals in 3 of his last 4 starts, and last year, after yet another Demko injury ahead of the 4 Nations, Lankinen was forced to shoulder a load of 12 of 15 starts, including 6 straight at one point and 10 of 11. In those 12 starts, his save percentage dipped to .885. In the 10-game run, when he played more minutes than any other NHL goalie, the save percentage fell even further to .873. So the idea of playing Lankinen in the dust right now not only seems unwise, but also significantly risks injury at a time when the team can simply not afford it. Every player has their limits, and the Canucks seemingly pushed Lankinen to his last March. The organization needs this player, but it also has to learn from the error of its ways as recently as last spring. And that's the one caveat with, running with Lankinen. If you overplay him, we saw the consequences of that. We saw what happened last year. Rick Tocchet made that mistake, and his save percentage dipped, and it fell even further the more he played. And maybe it'll be different this year if they do it, because Lankinen will be better prepared. Because last year, that was the first time he had played that many games. He usually not Demko. Lankinen was used to being a backup. He was kind of taking on the starter role. It was something new to him. So perhaps it'll be a reverse of fortunes. But we've already seen at the start of this season, didn't really come out hot out of the gate like he did last year. But obviously that is one option for the Canucks. And probably the most likely answer that the Canucks go with is running with Lankinen and having him shoulder the load while Demko is out. Let's take a look at option number 2, and that is turn to Patera. And this is one of the more likely options that the Canucks are going to go with, especially if they want to prevent or not make the same mistake they made last year and overwork Lankinen. They're obviously going to have to turn to Patera, who is currently right now backing up Kevin Lankinen. He is on the big club. Jiri Patera is on the roster and served as the backup to Lankinen in both games over the weekend. Of all the goalies in the Canucks stable, he has the most NHL experience behind Demko and Lankinen, having played 8 games for Vegas over parts of 2 seasons, 2022 to 2024. That said, it feels like there are significant organizational trust issues when it comes to giving Patera a chance. He had a dismal 2024 training camp, which led to the team scrambling to sign Lankinen. And this year's camp didn't go a whole lot better when Patera wasn't giving so much as a period of preseason action before being dispatched to Abbotsford. He was injured for almost all of last season, and this season has made 5 AHL appearances behind a patchwork Abbotsford roster and is 1-2-1 with a 3.10 goals against average and an .894 save percentage. Patera was signed to be organizational depth, but between injuries and a glut of goalies on the farm, really hasn't had much of an opportunity in the Canucks system, but perhaps it's Patera time for at least a couple starts while Demko recovers from his latest injury. And yeah, I think it would be beneficial if the Canucks throw in Patera for one of these next couple games, whether that's against the Lightning or the Panthers. Either one, I'm kind of leaning towards having him start against the Lightning and then give Lankinen the Panthers. But yeah, obviously that is a second option for the Canucks. It's, I think, a foregone conclusion that we're going to see Patera at least for one of these upcoming games. Perhaps you go with, Patera for, Sunday against the Lightning, and then Lankinen gets the next two, it being, the Panthers and then the Stars on Thursday. But this is definitely one of the options for them and is a likely option, and we're likely going to see it. Let's take a look at option number 3. Option number 3 is wait for Tolopilo. In a perfect world, this would simply be Tolo time. Unfortunately, the big Belarusian was injured in Abbotsford's third game of the season on October 24th and has been out of commission for the past 2 weeks. I do believe that Tolopilo is either back with Abbotsford or he's getting very close to returning to Abbotsford. At the time of this article, that was not known. I believe it was only recently that Tolo was, I don't know if he was activated or not, but Tolo is close to coming back. So Tolopilo could very well be an option for the Canucks if they decided to go down that route. I do think it would be more beneficial if they send Tolopilo back to Abbotsford, because Abbotsford could really use him right now. And, I think Abbotsford is a lot more dire for a guy like Tolo, even though Tolo is the number 3 in the system for goalies. Word from the farm is that Tolopilo is close to returning, as I just mentioned. And in theory, game action shouldn't be too far behind. But is it asking too much of Lankinen to hold down the fort and start every game until Tolopilo is an option? And what sort of position would that put Tolopilo in if he is asked to step into the NHL and face the best shooters in the world with limited, if any, practice time in the condensed schedule as he works his way back from a significant injury? That hardly seems like a plan. Ideally, Tolopilo would get a couple of AHL starts to rediscover his form before being recalled to the big league team. So JPAT kind of reiterates that right there. But yeah, I think it would be more beneficial if Tolopilo went to Abby and help them out, get his feet wet, having, missed the last 2 weeks. But he is obviously a third option for the Canucks. Let's take a look at the fourth option. Roll the dice with Ty Young. Ty Young is one of the other goalies in Abbotsford under contract to the Canucks. Ty Young is also 0-5 with a 5.08 and a 8.38 save percentage in his 5 AHL games this season. That's not all on him, since he probably doesn't even know half the names of the defenders in front of him with the roster churn that has gone on there. Still, he was lifted after surrendering 5 goals on 21 shots through 2 periods of a 7-0 home ice loss to San Jose on Tuesday night. At 21, Young is probably too young to be thrown into a situation that could quickly become a replay of Mikey DiPietro's NHL debut when he was shelled for 7 goals on just 24 shots. Young doesn't need that, and the organization doesn't either. So Ty Young doesn't really seem like a viable option, even for spot duty to fill a gap at the NHL level. And yeah, I completely agree. I don't think Ty Young is an option, and I don't think you roll the dice, especially with how this season has gone. So definitely don't think this is an option at all, but still can't hurt to think about it. Our fifth option is making a trade. It's conceivable the Canucks could explore the trade market for veteran depth insurance, but really, why part with even minimal assets unless the team knows there is a possibility Demko will be out longer than expected? Even still, at that point, Tolopilo should be ready to shoulder some of the load. So looking around for another netminder at this stage seems like it should be a non-starter. Canucks are likely going to have to turn to Patera for a spot starter too and live with the consequences. Canucks have a busy weekend, but then can catch a breather with just 2 home games between November 18th and November 25th. By then, they should have a better sense of where Demko is in his recovery and can plan accordingly before heading back out on the road for 4 games, including another 3 and 4 in California, plus a visit to Denver that will take them into the first week of December. So that is the 5th option. That's making a trade. This is probably very unlikely, as when what we talked about with the Jim Rutherford, he's not willing to, really give up any assets. I mean, even if they were minimal. And I'm not really even sure if there's really a whole lot of goalies on the market that the Canucks could get. I think I saw something about Spencer Martin got put on waivers or something like that, or he's since cleared waivers or something like that. But we've already been down that road, and we don't need to go down that road again. Now, for the 6th option, I have Aku Koskinen. He could be a potential option, but I guess you can kind of put him in the same boat as Ty Young. Perhaps it's too early for Koskinen. He did make his first AHL start just recently, and he actually picked up his first AHL win that actually snapped the Abbotsford Canucks' 11-game losing streak. So perhaps you just keep Koskinen in the AHL, let him marinate down there and keep going. I think he's far too young to just throw him into the NHL, similar to Ty Young. And obviously, Alexei Medvedev is not an option. Sorry, guys. He's not an option at all, but we'll likely maybe see some of Medvedev maybe next season in Abbey, maybe not. But I do think Medvedev is still likely 2 to 3 years away. So he's not even, you can't even consider him as an option. But those are these 6 goaltending options for the Vancouver Canucks that they could turn to with Demko being injured. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of these options? Do you run with Lankinen? Do you turn to Patera, which is the more likely outcome? Do you roll the dice with Ty Young? Do you go with Tolopilo? Do you wait for Tolopilo? Or do you go with the trade? Do you make a trade to just as like a safety blanket? Or option 6 that I mentioned, Koskinen? Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of it. Give me your thoughts. I'll reply to the comments. But I think it's obvious the Canucks are going to go with the first 2 options, which were run with Lankinen or turn to Patera. Obviously, as I keep mentioning, very likely they turn to Patera for a spot start in the next, at least starting one of the next 3 games, just to give Lankinen a little bit of rest. I think it would be beneficial, and hopefully they don't run Kevin Lankinen into the ground like they did last season, and hopefully also Demko's not out too long. It's just the 2 to 3 weeks. It's a minor injury. At least that's what they're claiming it to be, a minor injury. But it's hard to call any injury that Demko suffers a minor injury, considering how many injuries he's had in the last 3 years, which is 5. We talked about that in our Thatcher Demko video. If you guys haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. It's actually a pretty interesting video. We talk about how many injuries Demko has had in the last 3 years and whether or not the Canucks may regret extending Demko to that 3-year extension for that amount of money, with how much high risk he has with not being healthy. But if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. And if you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us, which is, of course, greatly appreciated. And it really helps out the podcast, too. on that note. But that's going to do it for this video. As always, let's go Canucks, believe in blue, and I'll see you guys in the next video.